biblical perspective. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to assume you heard that or that you already know that. So let me look at the other side of the equation. How does the scientific evolutionary view square, or how can we hold both views in mind at the same time? Let's go through these steps very quickly. First of all, the mere fact that it is steps should not be taken for granted. That the Torah says that God created the world in steps or stages that it calls days. This is what the very word evolution means. Evolution means slow change. Revolution is fast or rapid change. So evolution says, well, things happen gradually over a period. And the Torah, as we read yesterday, and this happened on the first day and the second day. So it doesn't say that it happened all at once. It says that things happen gradually over a period of time. The Torah has been saying this for thousands of years. Man has just discovered this or realized this most recently. Secondly, what is the first stage of evolution? Well, cosmologists, evolutionary biologists would say that about 14 billion years ago, there was a big bang. And this began the galaxy. 14 billion years, and people will say, well, how are you going to reconcile your notion of time that we just had Rosh Hashanah, and in the Jewish calendar we say this is year 5,776. Do you think the world is only 5,000 years old? Our science tells us that the universe is 14 billion years old. How do you reconcile that? Well, I said, well, look at again the stages that at the beginning began with a big bang. Well, what is a big bang? Bang! A big bang is a flash of light. Physicists would say this is changing matter into energy. And when you change matter into energy, it comes out in the form of heat and light. And what did the Torah say? The Torah said, Barisha bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Ve'Elohim vayomer yehi ur vahi ur. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. So far, I don't see any contradiction. God said that the universe began with a flash of light, and evolutionists say that it began with a flash of light. They call it a big bang. God said the light was good. It was very good. Secondly, evolutionists would say after the release of this energy, only a few substances were created. Very simple substances. Mostly hydrogen and helium. And you know, helium is a very light element. You put it in balloons, and it caused the balloon to float. And so most of the universe was hydrogen and helium, as it still is today. And they say that over millions of years, these gases, now this is an interesting word. The Torah used a word, the firmament. It also talks about the Shemaya, the heavens. We could think of it as the clouds. But would there not be a gas? The clouds, the heavens? So these gases, evolutionists would say, they began to rotate. And they began to heat up. And these helium gases ultimately ignited. And when they ignited, they turned into stars. And these stars burned. Familiar. That's what a sun is. It is basically a burning ball, mostly of helium. And these balls would burn for millions of years brightly in the sky. But eventually, as a star uses up its energy, it begins to go supernova. It begins to explode its own part of destruction. And they say, as a star is dying, it begins to create heavier elements, heavier than helium and heavier than hydrogen. And when these heavier elements, including metals like iron, are created, when that star finally explodes, it sends those heavier elements out into the universe. These heavier elements, like iron, clump together and they begin to form the planets of our solar system. Even The earth at its core, they say, is mostly iron. And then we have molten rock. And then on the surface of the planet, life began to form in the oceans and in the seas. Well, this also, I think, is consistent with our understanding the biblical story that Rabbi Baruch and Rabbi Bowen explained. That as God said, the earth was void and without form. And then as it formed, God pulled all the waters into one place. And he called the kayab, living things, to start to move first in the waters before the dry land, bayabasha, before the dry land appeared. Evolutionists also say that life on this planet began in the water before life began on the sea. God says, let us make man in our own image, according to our own likeness, male and female he. Let us make them on the sixth day of creation. And he said, this man that I created, I called his name Adam. And this is important. You got to know just a little bit of Hebrew. But the word Adam comes from the Hebrew word Adamah, which means earth. And so I called him Adam because I made him from the earth. He is earth man. And so this means from the substances of the earth. And so this is why we have, the minerals within us, such as iron. If you're not having enough iron, you need to have a little more string beans, or maybe some beets, right? You need to have your minerals and your vitamins. So we are of that stuff. We are made of the stuff of exploding stars. We are made of the stuff of the earth, makes our physical being. And this is not a contradiction of Torah. This is what the Torah said from the beginning. From the earth you were made, and from the earth you shall return. This is consistent with me. I don't have a problem believing in science and evolution at the same time. From this, the development of water, the chemical reactions, and this is what I find to be more unique. And so it lets us know that although there may be many worlds, the olamim, that although there may be many worlds, something special happened on this planet. Evolutionists would say. It says there for every grain of sand on the beach and every grain of sand in the desert, there are stars in the heavens. And they believe there may be planets around many of these stars. But something very special with even evolutionary biologists say may be very unique to this planet. Just the right conditions existed. That you could not have had life in the stars because it was too hot. And it can't be too cold where water is frozen. It's got to be just right. And the earth is like right in that area. Close enough to the sun to keep it warm, but not so far away from the sun for it to be frozen. And although you have all of this substance, all of this matter, most of the things on this planet are in earth. That is lacks life. If you think of the earth like an apple, at the core is iron and other metals. Then you have rock. And life only exists on the surface. It's like only on the skin of the apple is there life. The rest of it is dead. And so something makes it very unique. What happens here only happens here in this area. It says that then, the Torah says that God said the grass appeared, they say, and all the green things, each after its kind, the fruit after its kind. These green things that were produced have what, again, evolutionary biologists call the process of photosynthesis, taking the energy, that life from creation, and turning it into matter. That's how plants grow. Taking that energy, that light, and turning it into matter. And then they release oxygen. Is that not how the atmosphere